The first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe. I have a picture of him. Where was the picture? Here. Picture of the first Rebbe of Chabad. See, lived about 250 years ago. He was living in very, very, how do you say, precarious times. There was tremendous opposition to the Chassidic movement at that time. In fact, that eventually led to his being imprisoned. There was other religious Jews that couldn't take this, how do you say, wildness of Chassidut. They were, praying and loving God and loving every Jew, and you always had to repent. And anyway, you had to be always happy. So they didn't like this. But in any case, when the Chassidic movement was just beginning with the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid and Mezrich, so there was a tremendous opposition. And you have to consider that the people who became Chassidim, they came from families, or they themselves were opposers to Chassidut. And the opposition was sometimes even deadly. So there were no families of Hasidim, etc. in the beginning. They were just individuals that came from, usually people that were opposed to Chassidut. They suddenly became, okay. So the first Rebbe of Chabad was like this. He was from actually his family wasn't, but he was from an environment that everyone was against the Hasidim. Everyone was against the Hasidim. Tremendous opposition. But nevertheless, he heard about the Hasidim, and he heard about what they were doing. So he went to investigate on his own. And he wanted to see if really all the things that were said against them were really true. And when he went there, he realized that they weren't true, that they were tremendously devoted to Torah and to the commandments, and they were tremendously God-fearing. And on the other hand, they were very, positive and happy and everything they did. Okay. So he went there it ended up the Maggid of Mezrich, and that itself is a big, long story, but that's not important. He came back home to his father-in-law. And his father-in-law said, "Where were you? I heard you went." He said, "I went to the Maggid of Mezrich." He said, "How could you go to those people?" I said, "What did you do there? What did you learn over there?" He said, "I learned that God exists." He said, "Didn't you learn Torah?" He says, "Of course I learned Torah. You could have learned Torah over here." "Did you pray?" "I prayed also. You could have done that here." "What do you mean you learned God exists? Everybody knows God is here." He called the maidservant, a simple Jewish woman. He said to her, "Have you ever learned Torah?" "No, she didn't know Torah. She didn't learn Torah." "Does God exist?" She said, "Of course God exists. God exists." So he said to the Alter Rebbe, "Look, you could have stayed here and washed the floors. She knows that God exists. What did you learn over there?" The Alter Rebbe said, "She says that God exists, but I know that God exists." It's a big difference between saying and knowing. Knowing that God exists means that there's nothing except for God. God is creating everything. And that's a big mystery. How is it that we seem to be separate, but we're really not? So you say that God exists. She says it. She says it. And she acts accordingly. But I know it. I feel it. I feel it. And that's the purpose of Chassidut. Good. Let us now, is somebody asked a question? No. Okay. That is today's story. I'll sing a